Hello, it's me, ShinRabit. I hope you guys are doing well. It has been a while since I've been on the old YouTube. Obviously, I've made my podcast going up and I've been doing my Twitch, but doing a video like this has been some time and I'm quite excited. So what have I got for you today? Well, I've got the Halloween franchise ranked from worst to best. That's right, I've watched all 13 films in the last 7 days. It's been a challenge and it's tested my psyche. But I got through it and now I get to do the easy part and talk about it with you guys. But before we start, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my past experience with the franchise. It might help you guys understand my list. And also, if we can get 13 likes on this video, one for each Halloween film, I think we can do that. But my past with this franchise is I've never been a massive fan. But I have seen the original 7 films. I've seen a few of them multiple times. I've seen the first one a few times. I've seen Halloween 3 a few times. I've also seen Halloween 2018 once. Haven't seen Kills or End before this list. And I've seen the Rob Zombie ones a few times each. But it's not necessarily a series I'm a massive fan of. I tend to go to Nightmare on Elm Street a bit more. So I was really looking forward to getting my nails into this series and experiencing it and see if it can like convert me to a fan. So basically saying a lot of these are first time watches for me, and a lot of the ones I have seen maybe one time are almost like first time watches because I've not seen them for like 15 years, since I was like a kid. So it's interesting to watch them again, and my memory of them, my opinions have changed for quite a few of them actually. It's quite interesting. I will talk a little bit more individually when we get to it. What I will do is on this side, it's hard on there, on this side I'm going to have the film we're watching. I'm also going to have my letterbox score, and I'm also going to put on here how many times I've seen the film, because I do feel like sometimes that can help. If you've seen a film multiple times, it can grow on you. I have also watched these films and I've not seen any reviews or watched any of the lists until after I made my list, and now I'm pretty frightened because I've seen what a lot of the fans are saying about films now after I've made my list, and I've realised that maybe some of my opinions are a little bit different to what I've seen. So yeah, please don't be outside my house with pitchforks and torches, because again, it is only my opinion and it is just a bit of fun. Without any further ado, let's get into the ranking list. So, coming in at number 13. That's right, number 13, we have Halloween Resurrection. And when I said I have some rankings that you guys might not agree with or something, this one I feel pretty safe. A lot of people agree. This film is probably, and I'm trying not to be too objective. It's more my opinions, but this film is bad, and I think a lot of people agree, and I think the people that do like this film, I think like it for its badness and cheesiness, and it's so bad it's good. The issue with this film is it is got moments where it's so bad it's good, I agree, but for me it's only when Busta Rhymes is on the screen. I think other than that, the film is boring. The first opening 15 minutes, it has got spoilers everybody, but it kills off Laurie really terribly as well. The opening 15 minutes is really bad. And then you've got this bland, boring story with terrible characters where they're going around this house and it's like a reality TV show. I don't like anyone here except for Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes was the reason why this film is not a half star and it's a 1 star, because every time he's on screen, it made me laugh. He's kung fu kicking Michael Myers. He's walking around dressed up as Michael Myers. There's a bit where he's trying to watch a TV program and he's frustrated that someone's knocking on the door, and some of his dialogue is hilarious. He kind of saved this film. Well, it didn't save the film. The film is not saved. It's terrible, but it made me have a little bit of enjoyment in this film. But other than that, everything about this is just bad. It is a bad film, unfortunately, but that's why it's bottom of the list. Now moving on to number 12. Now this one, I've seen a lot of people kind of talk highly on this. I do think this film divides fans, but I've not really seen it so far down. So why is it so far down on my list? Why is it number 12? Well, the only reason why it's not number 13 was because Resurrection was so bad. But this film, as you can see, with 1.5 stars, I think is the film that I dislike the most. This film I've thought about more, and I'm more baffled to how bad this was, especially after watching 2018, which is a lot better than this. This film did not work in so many ways. The town, the people in the town was insufferable. They brought back characters from earlier films and butchered them, made them terrible. Tommy Doyle and all that, their decision making was terrible and horrible. And another thing that I really disliked about this is they had a lot of set pieces where Michael was against multiple people, and it was almost like an action slasher. This is the trilogy, especially the first two, are kind of like an action slasher, if you understand like what I'm kind of trying to say there. It's like they're slashers, but they're more focused on the action side for me. And when Michael is fighting 6-7 guys at one time and he's blocking and dodging, and I didn't enjoy it. It was like I was watching John Wick for a minute, you know. It was but this was the worst one out of them all, like out of that trilogy. It just, Laurie was barely in it. She was just sort of locked in a room for most of it. The characters from the first one, 2018, become a little bit more insufferable as well. I think the only positive that I could really get from this is, well, one basic positive is it was shot pretty nicely. There was a few nice shots, but the only other one was I do think they knew what they were doing, to the point where I think they were playing on it. They knew it was a bit crazy. They knew it was a little bit mental, and they played on it a little bit. And I don't think it was trying to disguise itself as something it's not. That's one thing I think the 2018 one does, which I will get into a little bit later. But overall, very disappointing film. I did not enjoy this, and I know a lot of people do like this one, and that's amazing. I'm glad you do, but for me, didn't work. So I'm sorry. Number 12. So number 11 is Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now this one was a direct sequel to Halloween 4. But unfortunately, it was only a sequel in story, not in quality. First off, the biggest problem I had with this was I don't know what they did to Michael Myers. He was almost cringeworthy. Some of the set pieces and the things that happen, like it literally opens up, he crawls out of a hole that he ends up in the end of the fourth one, and he's going down this river and he's floating down this river. He looks stupid. There's a scene where he's wearing another mask as disguise, and then you've got this girl called Tina, and she's like all over him, and he's driving his car, and oh, it's so cringe. Oh yeah, another bit that also made me laugh was there's literally like a car chase scene where like Michael is hunting people down in a car trying to run them over, and these guys are just running through the woods. And instead of just running behind trees and like, you know, what you would do, they're just running in straight lines, and he's just following them for ages. This film is Michael. This is the worst performance and way to treat Michael, I think, in the whole franchise. For me, his character is extremely cringeworthy, and there's just a few other moments that just do not work, and I do not understand what they were thinking when they made this. But basically, like, there's like one scene where there's these two coppers, and as they're walking out of this house, like there's just been like a murder, and they've got like clown sound effects. They're playing like trumpets and little squeaky horns. It's like something you'd see from Tweedledee and Tweedledum or the Chuckle Brothers. It was surreal to watch. I was like, I had to reverse it and go, did I hear that right? Did the music, was there just a musical clown circus cue in a Halloween film with these two coppers? And honestly, it was so dumb, but it did make me laugh a little bit. So well, that's a bit of a positive, that it made me laugh at least, but not with the film, more at the film. Another issue that I had with this, and again spoilers, was Halloween 4, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I enjoyed, and I really liked the Rachel character, and unfortunately they kill her off right at the start and they turn her into a dumb character, and after everything she went through in the 4th, it just seemed really disrespectful, and it's an unceremonious sort of way to just kill off a character that I think I like, and I think a lot of other people like as well. And the worst thing about it as well is the new like main character kind of was a girl called Tina, and she was literally one of the worst characters in this whole franchise. She was annoying, just dumb, and her friends were just toxic, and I didn't enjoy them. There's literally a scene where they pretend to scare the cops by like pretending that Michael Myers is chasing them, and they nearly get shot. It's just insufferable. Really bad characters. Overall, this film was just boring, hence why it's got a 1.5 star. And another thing, actually, before I go on to the next one, is why is Loomis in this is literally just shouting at kids, and he's just gone crazy. He's flew over the cuckoo's nest by this film. And it made me, I was laughing at it a little bit, which is probably why it's not the bottom 2, but it's close to being there. And after being after the 4th one, it's just a big letdown. Anyway, that's Halloween 5. And now on to our number 10 spot, which is the sequel to Halloween 5, and this is Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. And it's a little bit better than Halloween 5 in some aspects, but the first thing I have to mention is the story in this film is messy and all over the place. It doesn't make any sense. You can see that this film was cut and chopped and reshot. There's another version out there called the producer's cut, which I didn't watch. This was a theatrical cut, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference, really. It's just a very messy, like hodgepodge of ideas. But the thing is when you've got so many ideas, sometimes one or two things work, which I can say more than the last films that we have. I think that I like Paul Rudd as his first feature length film. At first, I thought it was a bit of a cringy performance, but I actually grew to quite like his character. He played Tommy Doyle, the kid from the first one. I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed aspects of the things. I think that having a cult that is an interesting idea. It's not done very well in this, but I think there's ideas. But the reason why this is higher, the main reason is after what they did to Michael Myers in Halloween 5, they brought him back in 6. He is cool. He's scary. He looks good as well. His character, Michael Myers, looks good. He's performed well, and the kills are good. Some good kills in this film. The story and everything like that, terrible, but the kills and Michael kind of saved this film. Some of the kills are great. You've got the scene where he gets electrocuted and his head explodes. There's another scene where one of the characters gets like sliced and the blood splats onto this like white blanket. I really appreciate stuff like that. I think it was whoever was filming the kills, I think they did a pretty decent job. And I also like the scene where he goes into the hospital room and he just slaughters a bunch of guys, and that's done a little bit better than Halloween Kills, whereas Halloween Kills had it more action. This felt like a horror film, like a bunch of just defenseless people getting slaughtered by Michael. Like that for me worked better. So that's why this film's a bit higher. The rest of it, unfortunately, again, 2 stars. There's a reason for that, despite the positives. So number 9, now this is another one that I was a little bit worried about because I think it's a little bit low compared to how I've seen it a lot. It's Halloween 2018. Now this was the first one of the new trilogy. And I think the reason why this is a little bit higher is I think it's actually technically quite a well-made movie. I think it's shot very nice, the music's good, the acting's pretty good. Like, I don't have many problems with the technical aspect of this film. There's a few shots that are really gorgeous, like, or really well done. I don't want to say gorgeous, it's quite a gritty film, but like, there's a few long shots when he's going through into the houses and taking out these people. And I like that. I think that was really well done, the way they did that. But I think overall, the reason why this is on 2.5 stars, and I think it has more misses than hits, is I think this whole trilogy, especially the first two, like and I mentioned it with Halloween Kills, they feel like action slashers, and you spend a lot of time with Michael, and I don't think there's that much tension building. I think it's just more about the carnage, and I understand what they were trying to do. I think I think this is more for a wider audience and things like that, and I can sort of sense that when I'm watching this film, because it's got a mixture of violence, and it's just all like ultra chaos and things like that. But one of the main issues I have with this as well is I think a lot of the ideas they try to do are done in multiple in other Halloween films. I think the Laurie, the way that she's being tortured by the past and how it's kind of affected her life, I think it's been done better in other films, which I'll talk about later. I also think the way that she fights back and that final confrontation, I think is mishandled a little bit. Like, I think that the way that she tackles the ending, I think some of her decision making was quite bad, and I think she was very lucky to not be killed. I think she had main character syndrome in this, where I think like some of the situations she got herself into, I was thinking, what are you doing? This is not, you're gonna get, like, if you weren't the main character, you would have been dead. Like, there's times where Michael had her and you think he's just gonna like, if it was any other character, he'd just kill her and like straight away, but he ends up like grabbing her and throwing her around a little bit, and I'm like, oh, come on, like you've spent all these years getting better, and you've had this time making this film. I kind of wish that you would have, like, I just felt there weren't a lot of thought put into the ending, which was a little bit of a shame. It just felt a little bit anticlimactic, and like I said, the ideas that they tried to do, I think, are just done better in other films. But overall, I think it's a fun popcorn flick. I think unlike Halloween Kills, it's a fun popcorn flick, and I think this one I can tolerate a lot more, and I think it has things that it does pretty well. I think it's technically pretty good. I would have just liked to have seen a little bit more atmosphere, a little bit more tension building, but I think that's just my preference. Again, I've seen people put this as their number 1 and 2 and 3 and things, and again, it's just preference at the end of the day, and I'm glad that people like this film. It's unfortunately it's not for me. But yeah, that's Halloween 2018. But yeah, let's go straight into our number 8. So number 8 is the final one of the trilogy. They've all been in here now, and this is Halloween Ends. Now, I think from this point onwards, I don't think I would say any of the films are bad, or like, I think every film from now onwards is at least like decent. It's good, I wouldn't say. So yeah, this is my favorite in the trilogy that came out, the Gordon Green trilogy. And this one for me, this is a weird one. It's a strange one to try and review because it takes such a weird direction, but I enjoyed the direction it took. I do think it was a little bit strange for it being the end of the trilogy and the end of Michael Myers to have this film. I agree with what people are saying there, but I think if you step back and watch it as a film and just try and forget about the trilogy, and I'm not a fan of the trilogy, so for me it was easier for me to do this. Watching it as a film on its own, I thought it was really strong, and I thought the first hour and 10, hour and 20 minutes were really good. I think it was a sweet story. I think it had a lot to say. You've got this character called oh my god, what's his name? I need to have a look at that. Oh, so you've got this character Corey, who kind of becomes the main character of this film, I like, because basically there's a tragedy at the start, and he ends up being seen as this monster, as the next boogeyman, as the babysitter killer, you know, like Michael Myers was. And that I like the idea and the concept of the town kind of turn him into this monster, because they believe it so much. Everyone's calling him it. He's an outcast, and I think he's a good person at first, and I think he's a flawed antagonist in this film. And as the film goes on, I think you sort of see him slowly become this monster, and I really like that. I think that's really good. And then in the middle of it, you've got like this quite sweet romance story of somebody else who's went through this horrible event, and like it says you've got, like, there's the bits where they say you're the freak show, the freak and the psycho, or something like that. And it's a really good dynamic, and I think it's a movie that says a lot, and it's nothing like the other two. This one, it feels like they took that action bit away, and they just tried to make this nice story, and I think they tackle it really well, and that's why it's quite higher. Unfortunately, though, the reason why it's still low and it's sitting at 3 stars was, I think, the way the film is, the way that Michael was barely there, the build-up of this character Corey, you needed to nail the ending, and this film didn't nail the ending, unfortunately. In fact, I think it really deflated me, the ending. And I know, like, at the end of the day, it's people have their own ideas, and I'm not saying my idea would necessarily work better, but I would have liked to have seen either two things. I would have either liked to have seen a little bit of a redemption of this character. I would have liked to have had a longer and a better conflict with Myers at the end. Either I would have either liked to have seen Corey fight back with Michael and almost overpower him, or something like that, or at least redeem himself, and then like sort of die, because there's no really redeeming what he's done. Or I would have liked to have seen Corey get taken out in a more satisfying way, to the point where I think it would have worked better if you had Michael Myers sort of coming out and being like you've been becoming the monster, you're the new Michael Myers, Corey, but you will never be Michael Myers. And I think that would have added a lot more fear and weight to Michael Myers as a character, because it's kind of like he is the true monster, he is the killer, Corey's got nothing on him. And I would have liked to have seen, but at the end of the day, Corey just kills himself, or well, pretty much kills himself, and Michael does finish him. But like, and I just think that was so anticlimactic. And then just to top it off, Michael Myers just gets battered by Laurie at the end and then gets killed. There's not, I think that film, I think you need to just get rid of a little bit in the middle. You know, there's little bits and bobs you don't need to put in there, shrink some of it down or something like that, and then have a longer, more epic conclusion. I think if you could have done that right, you've got a fantastic film. But unfortunately, this all builds up to the end, and the end is a massive letdown. So it goes from being a fantastic, what could have been fantastic, to just being an okay, good film. Like I say, I don't want to go any less than good, because I do enjoy the majority of it, and that's why it is sitting still quite far down, despite my positive feelings towards most of it. But definitely the best out of the trilogy, in my opinion. And that was Halloween Ends. Right, now we're on to number 7, and this is a film that I was surprised with my reaction, and that's Rob Zombie's Halloween. Now this, I think I said earlier that I watched Rob Zombie's Halloween a few times, and my pre-list that I sort of predicted I thought this was going to be much, much higher. But watching it this time, watching it with this sort of trying to find things I like and don't like. I don't want to say a critic, but like critical. But you know what I mean? Like watching it for a video and discussing it, you watch films a little bit differently. And yeah, I was a little bit disappointed in this film. And again, I'm not saying it's bad because, like, you know, like I said, 3 stars I consider a good movie. But I was just left a little bit disappointed with the overall movie, because if you ask me, the first 45 minutes of this film is, in my opinion, amazing. It's amazing, the first 45 minutes. When you've got young Michael and he's living in this like broken home, you've got this horrible guy who's with his mum, the sister, everybody in this film is just a little bit, like even the principal and the bullies and stuff he has to deal with, everyone's just so nasty in this film. And I think that's a Rob Zombie, like, that's his style. It always has these nasty people that have horrible dialogue. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I like Rob Zombie. I enjoy his films, majority of them. I think he's a good director with a style that you know you're watching a Rob Zombie film. And he brings his style here into Halloween. And at the end of the day, this is a reboot, a remake, whatever you want to call it. And I'm happy with him taking a different direction, which he does, massive. It takes balls to do what he did in this film, you know, because especially a lot of the Halloween fans are very, they can be quite critical, you know, and I think what he did was ballsy and I liked it. Yeah, so anyway, the first 45 minutes, really fantastic. When he goes into the asylum and then Loomis comes in, and I love Malcolm McDowell's Loomis. I think he's fantastic in this film. He's one of my favourite actors as well. And you've got this dynamic between the two of them. You've got little Michael and Loomis, and like you slowly see Michael going into this sort of the Michael Myers we know a little bit. You know, he's slowly losing his sanity, or what's left of it anyway. And it's just it's really nice. And then his mum ends up dying, and I think that's it. He doesn't say another word since then. And then it cuts like 15 years later, and Loomis is still trying to talk to Michael, and Loomis almost like he even says, Michael, you've become like my best friend, even though Michael never talks and he's a psycho, you know what I mean? So it's a really nice dynamic, really powerful, and I really enjoy that. Fantastic. And then when he breaks out the asylum, again, some really good set pieces, some good kills, really nasty. The guards are horrible, except Danny Trejo, who unfortunately dies, but he was a great character. It was quite sad to see him go, but it shows a lot about Michael just has no remorse. He's just a killer. It doesn't matter, you know? And then after that point, unfortunately for me, all of this stuff that Rob Zombie was trying to do, taking a new direction, gets kind of thrown out the window for me, because he just recreates a lot of the set pieces from the original film, and they are just done a lot worse than they were in the original film. Yes, they're a little bit more brutal and nasty, but I would have liked to have just seen him just take this new direction and go with it, and just, like, you know, and I feel like he comes back and he's like, right, now I need to put in some of the Halloween, this is a remake, I need to add that stuff in, and I wish he didn't. And the set pieces are just poorly done compared to the original. Like his action and tension, and when shit's going down, the camera's so shaky. It's like you don't know what's going on. It's quite poorly done, and it was a big shame, because the first half of this film is so great and the second half is so good. You've got such a great cast here. You've got some amazing cool actors popping up. You've got Sid Haig, and like you said, Danny Trejo earlier. You've got like Bill Moseley pops up. You've got Brad Dourif popping up. You've got all these, some of them are only for very, very minor roles, you know. You got people from Dawn of the Dead and all these cool actors, grindhouse actors, and I love that. Where every time they're coming on, I'm like, brilliant. But yeah, I just think the last half just really lets this film down a little bit. But like I say, where the strong points are very strong, and that's why it's at the middle point of this list, and I think it's where it belongs, in my opinion. Number 6 for me is one that I was dreading to watch because I don't like Scream and I don't like post-Scream slashers. I don't like Urban Legend. You've got I Know What You Did Last Summer. The Scream franchise I don't really like. And then you've got Halloween H2O, which for me, looking at the cover, is always put me off this film. And as you can see, it's actually quite high in the list. So I'm happy to say I was kind of wrong about this. Turned out I actually quite enjoyed this film. It's sitting at 3 stars. And I think what this film does really, really well, the reason why it's higher than like 2018 and things, is I think it tackles a lot of the similar things that 2018 did. It's got Laurie, it's 20 years on from the traumatic events of the first 2 films, and her trauma has affected her life, it's affected her family. She can't get rid of Michael, like she can't get it out of her head. She's constantly in fear, always looking over her shoulder. And I think this film did it a lot better than Halloween 2018 did. I think it shows the effects a lot better. I think it's a little bit more realistic. I think it's not so over the top. I think it's a bit more subtle in the way that they have this concept. And another thing as well is the final confrontation when Laurie decides to finally fight back with Michael Myers. She throws knives at him, she's stabbing him up, she's fighting him and actually holding her own against him. All of these years of fear and have all just come out. And that's what 2018 did as well. And I think this did it so much better. A lot better. And that's why it's higher on the list for me. I think the other characters I don't like too much. Josh Hartnett's character I didn't like. I didn't really like his friends much. That kind of reminded me of that post-Scream slasher era, which I'm not a fan of. That was very reminding me of that. But I think the story between Laurie and I liked her relationship with her son. Even though I didn't like his son necessarily as a character, I liked the concept it had. I think it did it really well. And by far, Jamie Lee Curtis is the best part of this film. And I think Michael's really good. I think the Michael Myers is quite scary. But yeah, I think overall, like a lot of the films in this middle section, it has some really good strengths, but then I think the rest of the film isn't always up to scratch, and I think it kind of balances it out. There's nothing necessarily super bad, but again, it's a little bit lackluster some moments. So that's why these sort of films are in the middle of the list, sitting at like 3 stars. But yeah, overall, really enjoyed this one. Surprised me of how much I actually did enjoy this film, considering how worried I was with watching this originally. But anyway, let's go into number 5. And number 5 is the original sequel. I nearly had you then. The original sequel, and it's Halloween 2. Now, this one's a weird one because I like the fact that it follows directly off on the first one. It's set on the same night as the first one. They're a good double bill to sit and watch one after another, and that's what I did. I literally watched one and then swapped it straight over, and it ends where it starts, and starts where it ends, I should say. And I like that, but the issue with it is that this is, I think, technically worse in pretty much every section of the film. And when you're watching it directly after the first one, you really see the downgrade it took. Not saying it's a bad film again, though. I've given it 3 stars. I think the final half of this film is much better than the first half. I think the first half is slow, boring. I think it's technically worse. And I think it has one moment in about 10-15 minutes in, which probably may be the funniest moment in the entire franchise. It's when there's this character called Ben Tramer who's constantly sort of brought up as like Laurie's crush in the first one, and like in this one, Loomis kind of he's gone completely crazy in this one. Like he from where he was in the first one to the second one, there's like a big jump. It's almost like he's not putting as much effort into the acting, which almost makes his character almost more likable in a way. But anyway, there's this moment when he sees what thinks is Michael, and I don't know why this guy's dressed like Michael, because we know. But anyway, that's a different thing. But yeah, Loomis gets out of the car, aiming his gun at him, like literally trying to shoot this guy, and this guy like dresses in like Michael. He like turns around, like fast walks away, and like he's obviously like terrified that this guy's just got out of a cop car trying to like shoot him, and he runs across the road, and he's like, his movement is like really stiff, and it's so funny. And then this cop car just comes in, wipes him out, crushes him up to this van. And then the van explodes. He burns to death. This poor lad. Just it's one. You just YouTube Ben Tramer's death in Halloween 2. It's hilarious. It's really, really funny. And it's probably the funniest moment in the entire franchise. It made me laugh for ages. But other than that, a bit, the first half is a little bit lackluster, especially following on from the first one. But when Michael gets to the hospital, I think the film improves massively. I think. These characters in the hospital are not good. I don't like them. But Michael just kills them in gruesome ways. The first one didn't really have these gruesome kills, so it was interesting to sort of see the creative kills. But when there's literally like a 20-minute chase. It's not the longest chase ever with Michael and Laurie when they're in the hospital. The final like 20 minutes of this film is some of the best in the whole franchise. It's suspenseful, the atmosphere's there. It literally was like, it was like the rest of the film wasn't that great technically, but then this bit they knew what they wanted to do, and I think everything about this final chase ending was really, really good. And then you got the badass ending where Loomis blows them up, and yeah, I think the final 20 minutes really saved this film and turned it into a good film. Because like I say, the opening half not so good. But yeah, that's Halloween 2, the original sequel. Next up, we now are number 4, and then now we have one up to 3.5. I think the top 4 films are all really good films and higher, really good or higher. And and Halloween 3 is one I've watched a few times. It's one actually I'll go back to in the franchise. I've seen this one quite a few times, and when I watched it as a kid, I think a lot of people have the same reaction. It's like, I'm here for Michael, what's going on? And especially because I was younger, I thought this film was the most boringest thing I've ever seen in my life. But as I've got older and I've watched it, and I can separate myself and go, I know Michael's not here, let's just watch a decent film. And that's what you get. You get a good film here. It's got a fantastic atmosphere. I think this one is maybe one of the best films that show dread. You know, you've got this, it has like a little bit of a mix of, you've got like a bit of a Cronenberg sci-fi film here mixed in with like a little bit of like a Wicker Man, Twin Peaks small town sort of vibe. Like what's going, like, you know, weird wacky characters popping up. You've got like, it does feel like it's taken from a lot of films. It comes, like, lots of ideas are coming in, and I think a lot of the ideas work. I think the story there's a little bit of confusion for me, like when like the Stonehenge is involved, and I think it gets a little bit too much, and it's a little bit messy at times. But overall, like, the gore's great. The actual, like, the main story of this guy and this girl going into this small weird town where you've got this like factory that's like mass producing all of these masks. I think that's genius, and like they're gonna kill all these like kids. It's brutal, and some of the actual like the violence and things are really, really good. It's got a great Halloween vibe, not Halloween the franchise, but like the time of year Halloween. It has a great vibe to that. It's a weird film, and I really enjoy this film. I think this film is it's such a fun film to watch. You know, it's really fun. Like I say, I do think it gets a little bit messy, and I'm not a massive fan of the main character in this. I know a lot of people love him, but I'm not massive on him, but I can forgive that. I don't mind that too much. But yeah, I think the twists and turns this take are really good, and I think all these ideas are great. I just think it's weird. It's very strange to be in the Halloween franchise. I mean, I understand what they were trying to do, what Carpenter wanted, and things like that with the anthology thing. But to there just to be one of them, it is a little bit odd. But it don't bother me. That don't bother me. I'm here to watch a decent film, and that's what we get. Hence why it's my number 4 in the entire franchise of Halloween. 3.5 stars. Fantastic music, fantastic atmosphere, great dread, sense of dread, funny points, crazy characters, really insane story, some good kills, some good gore in there as well. Yeah, really good film. Number 4, Halloween 3. So we are now in the top 3. But before I go into the top 3, I want to say thank you everyone for being in for this long. If you are enjoying, please make sure you subscribe, and like I say, leave a like. We're going for that 13 number. And you know, if you are enjoying this and you want to see more, my plans, I want to do the same for Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Child's Play, all these franchises. I want to watch all the films, and have fresh review, watching them in order, and then I want to kind of, my plan is to do like a tier list of all these films I've been watching, all these franchises, and do like an ultimate tier list where I've got Halloween, Friday, and we can really see what's the best, what's the worst. So if you are enjoying that, please make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of that. I do have the podcast that we're doing episodes every like 2 weeks or so of some like weird wacky films and things. But anyway, enough of that. Let's jump straight into the top 3. And I think these 3 films are fantastic films, or even great films, amazing films, whatever you want. But these top 3, I think, are all special films. And it was very, very difficult on where I rank these. Like, I was even considering like one to be top, and then it was 3rd and 2nd. It's a very difficult one for me here. But coming in at number 3 is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Yeah, and I was worried about this one because when I've seen people's lists, I've seen this one last a few times, like before Resurrection, and I was like, oh my god, people don't like this film, and I could understand why some like die-hard Halloween fans don't like this, because Michael barely wears his mask, and if you watch the director's cut, he even talks. I can understand why it annoys people. But for me, I think this film is brilliant. I think it's a dark, gritty, nasty, quite dirty. Like, I feel like you need a shower after this film. And I think it takes the issues that I had with Rob Zombie's first film, where it was going in a good direction, and then just copied the first one in a poor way. This one does its own thing. Rob Zombie does his own thing. He brings his style in. He does his own story, and this is what I wanted. I think if you have the first 45 minutes of the first film and then add it onto this, it's a fantastic little double feature story here. You've got Laurie's the same actress, and she is so much better in this. She's still a little bit annoying. She's not perfect, but she's so much better in this. You've got Brad Dourif, he comes back. You've got Daniela Harris, she comes back as in a role again. All these actors are so, like, they are in the first one, but they're so much better in this one. They've got a lot more. There's a lot more of a character arc to them. There's a lot more. Spends more time on them. They're not just here to be like a body count or something. They actually have quite emotional stories, and I think it does so much better than the first one does. It still has that gritty Rob Zombie style that I really appreciate, and the violence and the kills are nasty. There is still that shaky cam, but it's not as bad, and when it is bad, I think there's There's like a bit where he's in like a strip club and he's killing these people, and it is still very shaky, but you've got all these colours and this violence, and I think it works a little bit better. Whereas in the first one, it was just dark rooms, dark little houses, and it's shaking, so it's already dark and foggy, and then when you've got it all shaken, it's hard to see at all what's going on. I just think everything works so much better in this film. And another thing that I love is, and this would normally insult me because I loved Loomis in the first one, and he's almost a different character in the second one. He is the most unlikable character ever, but because it's so bold and it's such a massive 180, and he's so horrible in this as this character all of a sudden, I adore it because it's so like it just, I was not expecting it, and it's so funny. Some of his dialogue is horrendous, like, and I don't mean like the way his acting's fantastic, his performance is brilliant, but his character is awful. It's awful. But you know, I read into it a little bit because I was like, I wanted to know why he did that. And I kind of, like, after reading about what Rob Zombie's reasoning for this, I understand and actually quite like it. I respect the decision. And at the end of the day, it made me laugh so much. It was so funny and so dark as well. And yeah, I think this moment's had some really good emotional moments in there as well. Overall, I think Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 takes everything that the first one does and makes the better things better and gets rid of the bad things. So the only issue I can sort of see is it does a lot of things that I think, like a diehard Halloween fan, I can understand why you don't like that. I can see that. And I will watch the theatrical cut, and I didn't really like the ending too much, but then I did see the director's cut after, like, the moments that, like, I watched like a video of all the changed bits, and I like that ending, the director's cut ending, a lot as well. I wish I saw that one first, but and I think I like that direction a bit more. But overall, this film was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. That's why it's got 4 stars for me, and it's number 3 in the entire Halloween franchise. Now moving on to number 2, and this was tricky because I think the one that I picked for number 2 is the one that I enjoyed the most, and I think it's the one that I want to rewatch the most now, but I just couldn't put it as number 1. And number 2 is Halloween 4. This film was so good. This is the closest that you've got to the first one. The suspense, the atmosphere, the musical cues, everything about this is really well made. I gave it 4 stars, and I thought about it, and I was thinking I want to go up another half star, but then I was like, there are some problems that was stopping me a little bit. But overall, this film was so good. And you know what I really liked about this? Loomis is fantastic and he's hilarious. Some of his performance in this is hilarious. I love it, but it's still fantastic. The sheriff, the new sheriff they add in here, actually takes things seriously, and he's not dumb. The characters are not dumb here. Rachel and Jamie Lloyd are, I know this is controversial, they're my favourite characters in this franchise. Like, those two, I like them two, their little partnership, more than I like Laurie Strode. And that, I know that's controversial or whatever, but I think those two are brilliant. I think Daniela Harris is amazing. I think and I think Rachel is a great final girl, and I love their dynamic. The issue that I have with this film, or the 2 issues I have, is they do the old killing off a major character off screen. They kill off Laurie. This is set way after Laurie dies, and it's her daughter. I don't mind it as much because it was the way to bring her daughter in, and they brought Rachel in as the new character who I really liked. So I didn't mind it as much as other films have, because the replacement and all that was fantastic in my opinion. I thought she did amazing. And the other one, I think, is what most people know, is this is the worst looking Michael Myers, which is such a shame, because this is one of the best films, and Michael Myers' mask and his like shoulders and his mask is really bad. Like when I was watching it, I was like, what is this? Like there's like a few scenes where you see it and I was like, why does he look so bad? But other than that, this film has so much good. It like fantastic. It has so much fantastic moments and some set pieces. I love the sort of idea that they barricade himself into a house and Michael Myers kind of breaks in and sneaks in, and he like, it's got some good kills in there. It's got some characters you love to hate. It's got some characters that you actually really, really like and root for. Yeah, this one was fantastic, and it was so close to being my number one. But unfortunately, I just couldn't put this number one, because I think number one is a much, much better. I say much, much. It's a better film. But if you want to see my full reviews to these, like I say, follow me on Letterboxd. I have them written up. They're not very well written up, but I talk in a little bit more detail. Talking about 13 films, I'm trying not to spend too long on these films, because there's lots to say. I would like to, join me on my Twitch, and we can talk about them a little bit longer. But like I say, this film, so good, and it was the one I think I enjoyed the most. But it is number two, because my number one is the original Halloween, 1978. This had to be number one, because I watched this and I was like, this is a masterfully made film. This is like, and the thing is, like I've said to you, I'm not a massive Halloween fan, so I don't tend to watch Halloween much. I don't watch the original that many. I've seen it a few times, but watching it this time with a bit more of a critical eye and trying to really, it's such an incredibly well made film. John Carpenter, the atmosphere, the way the fog is, the Halloween feels it gives you, the performances, the way Michael stalks, and some of the cinematography and some of the shots that you are getting. This is technically one of the best horror films I've seen on a technical standpoint. And it's John Carpenter, who I think is a master of horror. I think John Carpenter is one of the best directors around for me. And yeah, I've always, even when I think of John Carpenter films, this is never normally that high. I mean, there's films I like a lot more. But watching it now the other week, and it is incredibly done. There's some shots in here, where there's that one where Laurie like knocks him down and she's like scared, and you can see him in the background and he just sits up. It is really, really, really well done. And like you say, I was tempted to give it the 5 stars, but I've given it 4.5 stars for me, because even though I think this is an incredibly well made film, and I loved watching this, I loved it, and I was in awe. I do think there are other slashers, not just film, like there's other slashers that are better, and comparing it to that, I couldn't quite give it that 5 stars. But I think maybe with the rewatches and with this new appreciation that I found for it, maybe it would eventually get there. But like I say, everything, the music is iconic. Obviously, it's in the most of the franchise, but the way it's done in this film is superb. The timing of it, and just this one is fantastic. When Loomis goes to the asylum, you're just seeing all these people walking around, and you're thinking, what's going on? And then Michael takes the car, and I just think it's so well made. The only thing that I did notice, like, if I'm trying to be coming up with like something that was, I think there was a little bit too many times near the start of the film where Laurie would look around and Michael's just stood behind a tree or a bush or a car watching her. And like I get it, and but I do think there was a bit too many of that, and it got to a point where it was kind of like making me giggle a little bit, because I could just imagine him going behind the bush and running away, like when she comes to look, and like, but that's just a very, very small, minor nitpick. I think this film doesn't have many bad things to say. I think it's a massively directed, crafted film. I'd like you say, it's not about the gore. It's not even about the kills, really. It's about that atmosphere, that dread, that feeling of this unknown person. Nobody knows who he is. No, he's not Laurie's brother at this point. He's just this unknown character who's just wearing this mask, and he's just killing people and stalking them, and it's just nasty. But as well as it's beautifully shot, beautifully crafted. And even though I think I had more fun with Halloween 4, I just couldn't put it above Halloween 1, because I think Halloween 1 is the best made film, and I loved watching it. And I think my appreciation for this film went from here to here on this watch. But that's my Halloween ranking list, and I know that some of you are going to disagree, and like I say, it's my opinion. I'm not a die-hard Halloween fan, like I've said a few times, so some of my opinions might be a little bit different to someone who is. And you know, at the end of the day, get in the comments if you agree, if you disagree, whatever. Get in the comments. I love reading the comments. I'll always respond to them. Join me on my Twitch. We can have a good discussion about them. And like you say, if you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe. I won't keep you any longer. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the day, rest of the week, and I will see you in the next one. And I'm thinking of doing Friday the 13th next. So or Nightmare on Elm Street. One of them two. I don't know. But I will see you there. Thank you, everybody. And pieces, deuces, and deuces, pieces. Bye-bye.